Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm over at the Microsoft Fabric Conference as we speak. I believe this is our Thursday episode, and this is the, last day, second to last day, somewhere around there, of the Microsoft Fabric Conference. I think it goes Tuesday through Thursday. So hope you're enjoying the conference. Yes, exactly. So I'm probably sleeping now. No, I'm up now. It's because it's 8-hour shift. So I'll be up. Good morning. I'm probably talking to you right now somewhere at the conference. So hello and welcome. I hope you're enjoying the conference for those of you who were able to attend the Microsoft Fabric conferences. I will say though, Tommy, the conferences have been getting more fun over these last couple of years, going to Las Vegas. Now they're going to be doing it in Vienna, and there's going to be the next one in 2026 over in Atlanta, Georgia, I think is the next announcement.
Okay.
So that'll be really fun. It's an art. Finally, it's on our side of the country. It's just to fly south to Atlanta. Easy.
Man.
Will you make it?
This is the time that I'm going to try to. I'm trying to go to San Francisco. I think, Atlanta is where we met. So it's a very sacred ground.
Atlanta is where we met. Was that one of the Microsoft Data Insights conferences?
That was the Business Application Summit.
Was it business application back then?
Yes, it was, because I dude, I don't know if you know this, but I submitted a session, and I had, outside of the keynote, the most the highest number of people who said they were going to join.
No way.
It was in the 3,000, and they're like, you're having a theater, so we may have to move you because this is not going to. I was like, okay, cool. And then I had a fever, so literally, I was in the hallway just trying to get some energy, and then Chuck walks by with you and Seth and goes, "Hey, this is the guy who wants you to meet." I'm like, "Hey, how are you doing?" So you guys laughed and kept walking.
No way.
Yeah, I remember that, man.
Amazing. I don't remember that. I remember the building though a little bit. I think it was next to the Mercedes Stadium. I think it was at the time.
Giant conference center. So
huge conference center, and it was actually pretty. And did we all stay in the same Airbnb at the time, or that wasn't?
Oh no, I stayed in my own
hotel room. Okay,
yeah. So.
Because around that time in the conferences, I started with other MVPs. When we went to conferences, we would kind of connect up and say, hey, let's go get our own Airbnb and split the cost. It was much cheaper to get a hotel like that. And then you have a full kitchen. You can get your own breakfast. It's a little bit more flexible, I guess. So I remember going there, and we had an Airbnb right next to the conference center, and we would walk over every morning, a block and a half to get to the conference center. I do remember that part.
Dude, the room they sent me to felt like it was a block and a half, because if you remember how big that convention center was.
Oh, it was massive.
We were in A. I had to walk to C, which was a very long walk. I'm like, almost, yes. So
I distinctly remember that conference because I believe we had a visualizing and all the top tips and tricks from Power BI tips, kind of one of those things. And I just happened to be scheduled at the exact same time as Power Hour. Which was horrible because everyone wanted to go to Power Hour and no one wanted to come to my session. So I was super energetic for the 5 people that showed up to my session, because everyone else, it was at the end of the day, it was the last conference day. Everyone was kind of ramping down, and then they had Power Hour, and everyone wanted to cram in for Power Hour. So that was just quite funny.
That's hilarious.
Anyways, let's talk about our topic today, and then we'll go into a beat from the street here, some news articles, and then we'll go back into the main topic. Today, our topic is going to be around the composite model and reusable data sets. Are we getting confused and sending mixed messages depending on what we're sending here? So this is going to be interesting. A good topic here, I think. Composite models exist, but maybe we should be building reusable data sets instead. What's the best place to go? What's the best place to use and build this stuff with? So I want to explore that. Real quick, before we get into the main topic, though, I have a little bit of I'll call it a beat from the street. I've been doing a lot of work around Translytical. Have you played with Translytical at all, Tommy?
So dabbling. I know you got a story. You were just showing me you're going back to, forget the cloud. We're going local. So what are you doing, Mike?
Yeah, I'm just playing with Translytical. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been doing a couple webinars around Translytical. I've been building examples around it. I had a recent client kind of ask me a question, said, hey, we have an inventory issue. And the issue really was we have inventory at multiple locations, different data warehouses. And so they needed the ability for all of the managers of the warehouses to kind of be able to see all inventory across all locations. And then when your parts are low, again, you're building products, part for a product that you need, you should be able to at least request it from another location that has a very high inventory, something along those lines, right? Weeks on hand becomes very important. And so it's like if you're running low or short or out of something, you can have someone ship it over to you, and then you can have those parts, rebalancing basically your inventory levels. So I built a whole translytical workload around that. That'll be one of the demos that we do on Tuesday at Fabricon, which is in the past now, because you'll be seeing the video now in the future. But that's one of the demos that we're going to be doing. And so in addition to that, I'm understanding a lot more around translytical task flows. I can see why this was such a big deal for Microsoft, because there's a lot of two-way communication that needs to happen between multiple different services. For example, the report needs to send data. The user data function needs to receive the data. The user data function needs to do multiple things. And the user data function needs to be like, I'm going to execute this SQL query. I'm going to send this data. I'm going to do XYZ things. But the user data function needs to have like a completion signal, like, hey, I'm done. I've completed. I've been able to run successfully or not successfully. And that data then is funneled back into the report. And then when the report receives the message back from the user data function, it refreshes itself. There's a lot of like little micro interactions that are happening between services that just have to work. It just has to be reliable. And they dialed it in. And I'm actually quite impressed. There's a lot of experiences you can build here. I had two clients almost the same week ask me, hey, we need to add annotations on top of our data. I was like, great.
Okay.
Does that. Like that is exactly what you want to do. Here's some data, select the piece of data, and then write down or write into that data directly. A lot of people, I think, are really trying to unpack and figure out what this looks like. Anyways, very interesting, very excited to see how this is going to be made.
So outside of using it on a Raspberry Pi, that's I think just showing the examples, one of those internet for things. It can be any kind of host or platform.
Think about IoT. I mean, this is a function, right? The function can talk, like, it's Azure. It can talk to anything. So I'm working on another demo or example, and maybe we'll do it here on the podcast, or actually have a quick tips to show people how it's actually built. But I also made a translytical workflow where you could go into the reports, put some text into a text slicer, and when you hit send, it will send it to the function. The function will then execute, send the data to Azure IoT Hub, which will then send it directly to a single device. The device will then display the message and then message back that it's complete. So now the user data function can now signal that you've sent a message and it's been received. How cool is that?
Man, dude. And I think too, like webhooks, all those things where it's kind of showcasing the automation side of this too.
Yes.
Obviously you're doing the manual side, but this is a lot. It doesn't have to be a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't have to be a physical device. It could literally be just some trigger that set it up.
Anything you can think of. And so as long as it has an API to it, you can do it. If this, then that could be leveraged here. We were joking around building this demo, like someone could actually make a report that would open their garage door if they wanted. Like they could integrate with that if they really wanted to. So, that'd be great, or turn on their lights or turn off their lights. Like this could be all integrated into a Power BI report at this point, which is kind of, mind blowing. The thing I think I like the most about this experience though is, okay, fine, Translytical Task Flows, don't like the name, fine, whatever it is. The neat part about this is how well it integrates with every single other part of the product, right? It's the send, click a button, send them data, and then the report just does it. It just works. Like I'm not wiring a bunch of extra things in. It's a little bit tricky to set up, but it's not difficult. You can gather what it's trying to do, and so very exciting. I'm really excited to see where the people are going to take this one. There's already a Translytical Task Flow gallery that's out there. There's already a couple submissions in it today. Currently, it's actually really pretty neat.
Nice, dude. And I know those we talked about that about those samples. Like, I don't know where this is going. I can see it's code, but I don't know where to put it, and like where the output is going to go. So it's good to see though too with these solutions that we're having a little more context. I don't know. We're never huge into Power Apps, but the community there, I think by Microsoft, they had probably the best GitHub repository of solutions.
Yeah.
And and each one had obviously the solution code and like the install instructions, what it does, an image of it. So it was really nice to like, oh, okay, so this would do this. Is that going to meet my needs? Okay, here's how I need to install. Here's the configuration.
Sure.
So rather than just pure code or zip files that you're looking at.
I mean, I agreed. That's actually really nice to have images or, some examples of like how that works. One thing I'll just kind of note here around the Power Apps. I really like Power. Tom, you've done a lot of Power Apps in the past, and it's really nice to build apps. I think Microsoft had the right idea. A low code or no code solution to building applications is the right thing. But I don't think Microsoft was anticipating this whole large language model vibe coding experience to kind of just take over. And it honestly, Tommy, I feel like every week I'm seeing massive improvements with like better code, better prompting. And I heard something that I want your reaction to. Okay.
All right, I'm listening.
The reaction, someone was talking about their company and how they do almost all of their code with using agents to help them code. Okay.
Okay. I don't like where this is going.
Okay. So they said in their experience, they found that doing vibe coding is like writing poetry. And instead of trying to use poetry to evoke an emotion or a feeling or something else, you're using the words to evoke an application, a feature, a design. So it's kind of like this, like poetry isn't a science. It's a bit of art and science mixed together.
Okay.
Right? You can have poetry written, and in different people, it resolves a different response. And I feel like sometimes that's the same way that large language models react when I talk to it. Like if I'm not descriptive enough, if I'm not specific enough, if I'm not clear enough, the same statement might resolve multiple different results to the large language model. So I thought to myself, he said that, and I was like, okay, interesting. Yeah, poetry. Okay, you're being just a little bit too poetic with the words here. But as I really sat and mulled over what he was describing, yeah, it really is. It's like writing poetry. You're trying to write the right kinds of words to communicate correctly with the large language model and get the desired output or results that you want 100%. From the large language model. Isn't that? I thought that was really interesting.
Freaking 1,000%. So there's a few local projects I was working on, but the context is so like it cannot be understated how important feeding a context is. So, for example, like there's some really like honestly, as much as you want to invest in the cool tooling, it's looking into how do you actually feed that information to those AI models. So like, for example, I have an extension that on GitHub, any repo will basically just convert the entire code base to like a text file with all the files and everything.
Sure.
That's what I feed it. Kind of things like, hey, take a look at this. This is an example kind of thing.
Yes.
So that is such an important part. And again, you look at across the board, this kind of goes back to our conversation around AI prep and Copilot. With AI prep, you have the data, but the data is not a training. You know what I mean? That's what they're trying to evaluate.
Yes.
You don't have that back end of like true false kind of thing, like training data or what's right, what's wrong. And you only have a text box. That's the only context you can give it. And we already know with sample data, with like basic data, even like whatever the type of generation is, it needs a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm getting to the point right now. I mean, in our company, I run a consulting firm that does app development and consulting around Power BI. The Power BI thing is not so much, but when we're talking about app development or function development or visual, object development, things like that, things that are very well known, I'm lighting up Copilot for all my team members. GitHub Copilot, I'm just buying it. Everyone's going to get their own version of GitHub Copilot. It's going to be part of our team. And right now, internally, we're all trying to learn what's the right way to use a Copilot. So we're actually, it's more like the whole team is trying to figure out what is useful. And what we're finding is giving Copilot very small tasks lots of little ones and working on specific problems or issues is extremely helpful in helping everyone be able to produce code. We're now using GitHub Copilot code reviews. So every time we do a check-in or a pull request, when we go from the branch that you're developing on to dev, we're always using GitHub Copilot to do a review. So we've changed kind of how we have handled our review policy on code. Branching to dev goes through GitHub Copilot, and it catches a lot of things like, hey, this logic is redundant. You have a double negative here. Are you sure you want that? Like it does a lot of like finding of like little things. And then it does a really good job commenting them, so you can go back and make another commit and change those things and fix them. But then when we get from dev to test, that's where we can start involving like people, right? That's where we start saying, okay, let's get the senior engineer developer to kind of step in and do the review. And then when we go to test to prod, we're having another review there to make sure that there's nothing that's, everything's still good and we can still deploy correctly. So I really do feel like this is actually permeating our workloads and it's changing how we build things. On the other side of things, I'm also trying to look at AI. Where can we apply it to do sales and marketing? How do I get it to help it communicate like what we're building and how to communicate this out to our audience and team members? Anyways, fun stuff.
It's all have you heard of Cloud Code?
Cloud Code, yes.
Yeah. So there's a ton of like this whole idea around the agents too. So
Cloud Code, Replit, Lovable, like there's
Codex kind of thing. So yeah.
Again, I can't keep up. Every other day, there's like another one. There's another agent showing up in a code solution. That's like now you have Grok Fast Code. Like that's another one, but now you can get that in VS Code. Like all these different things are all over the place. And what I think, Tommy, is I think we're going to get very specialized. I think these agents are going to get efficient, lower cost, and they're going to be very focused on a specific thing. Someone was telling me data centers are going to require, in order to run all this AI stuff, because of the GPUs and the heavy amount of consumption of like GPU usage. Someone was telling me that data centers are going to need to be able to use, I think they said like 10 to 50 megawatts, no gigawatts, 10 to 50 gigawatts of power to run these things. I think we're going to run out of power pretty soon. For context, like a gigawatt runs like a tiny city, right? So, 50 gigawatts of power running through these data centers is enormous. We're going to have to figure out cheap sources of energy that don't involve burning fossil fuels all the time.
And it's also the amount of water it consumes too. So yeah, there's a ton of that. So,
well, I don't understand that. Why do you need why is water being consumed to cool? Yeah, but I understand. But like, where does it go? Like, are you literally turning it to steam? Is that what we're doing? We're steaming it off?
No. So it's, Mike, think of the normal PC, like a power PC. It's either going to be fanned, but the best way is to have a coolant
water
system.
cooled. Sure.
Yeah. Do you remember when we were at Ignite last year?
I do remember that.
Yes. Remember they had an entire display of
a GPU rack. It was incredible.
In the art section of GPU.
Yeah, it was.
They're very proud of that.
Yes, so. Exactly. I was writing poetry to it. Oh, ChatGPT. Oh, ChatGPT. How art thou, ChatGPT?
Oh, yeah, but that's the whole idea too. Like, it's gonna run somehow. So
there's got to be a better way. Someone's got to figure out a better way of like just moving the heat away from the processors out of the data center without having to use a ton of water. That just seems ridiculous, Tommy. Like, why do we need to consume water to cool our things? And why is it consumption? It feels like it should be like a very simple closed loop something or another. I don't quite get it. I'm not sure if I understand quite yet, but I guess that's why people are trying to drop like data centers at the bottom of the ocean. I think Microsoft did this where they dropped a whole data center at the bottom of the ocean because that's like infinity cold at the bottom of the ocean. You can't warm it up. It's just too big, I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
I cannot wait to see that blog article introducing Atlantic Data Center.
It's not one lake anymore. It's right.
Yeah, it's one ocean.
The bottom of the lakes data. You get introduced bottom of the lake.
Oh gosh. I want to see. Yeah. What's that approach do you actually do? Is that different than yeah.
Yeah, it's just colder data. We put it in cold storage. All the funny terms. Anyways, okay, enough of our bantering about the beat from the street. Super fun. I definitely would recommend people go check out Translytical Task Flows. Very neat And it only costs you CUs. You don't have to go buy another license. There's not another app. You can do right back. A lot of things that you wish you could have done are now being directly handled through Translytical, which is pretty dang sweet. Okay. That being said, let's get on to our main topic, Tommy. Want to do our honors here today, Tommy, and give us the main topic?
So our main topic is mailbag. Do we use composite models or reusable data sets? Are we sending mixed messages? And here is the mailbag. Whoa! I think I'm triggered after listening to both your composite model episode and your managing multiple data set episode. Isn't a fair bit of the question fairly similar? However, much of the discussion seems different between episodes. In one sense, the gold standard seems to be thorough with data modeling, data set development to build a data set semantic model that can be used in multiple thin reports as needed.
Mm-hmm.
But the use of composite models seem to be somewhat discouraged, even though this is another way to reuse key semantic models to answer business questions without redoing this exact same transformations.
Mm-hmm.
It was alluded to, but not explored, that Fabric has better ways of doing. He put a question on that. It was alluded to, but not explored, that Fabric has a better ways of doing this.
Correct.
With the data warehouse or lakehouse. Can you expand on that? Thanks for the podcast. Even though I consider myself a skilled at Power BI, I'm constantly learning from you guys. Oh, that's how you get on
that's
the podcast.
A lie. That's definitely a lie.
That's how you get on the podcast. So, oh, sweet nothings.
Exactly. Sweet nothings. You're writing poetry to my ears.
Our AI slop poetry.
So this is a great topic, Tommy. I think this is actually very relevant. And I would agree, Tommy. I think when composite models came out, there was a lot of like fanfare with what a composite model was. I think we should probably define what we mean by composite models and what we mean by golden data sets or data sets that help define things in organizations. So, Tommy, you want to take a swing at doing composite models?
Yeah. So composite models, I cannot tell you the year that it was came out, but rather than doing a live connection to your semantic model, which has been available in Power BI, obviously we know the limitations. Can't really build anything off of it, and that's the data that's in there is the data that you have. Composite models allows us to use a mixed bag of an analysis service or the live connection to a semantic model, pick and choose actual tables from that semantic model with other sources that are usually imported. So I can have a single Power BI report that is coming from my gold semantic model, while also an Excel file that is connected to SharePoint. That SharePoint file is not part of the original semantic model, but in this new, what we call composite model, because it does a mix of more or less direct query or direct query analysis services and import data.
Yep. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a great summary here. I believe, again, I'm looking at ChatGPT and people are trying to write about it and trying to pull things into the internet. So again, your mileage may vary on this one. This may not be exactly right, but
you don't need ChatGPT for this now. Come on.
Well, there's a little bit of nuance, I think, to this one. So Microsoft released, Tom, you're going to be shocked when I say this. Microsoft released composite models in 2018.
What?
I know. Okay, let me caveat this. Composite models were released in 2018, meaning you could have mixed data sources, meaning it didn't have to only be a single source of information, right? Yeah. I could go from SQL Server to another system, right? That was when the composite model was released. However, direct query over analysis services, which is part of the composite model family, wasn't really released to 2020. So you couldn't have a semantic model of model until 2020.
I got you.
And so, Tommy, you're in the same boat as I am. We're both thinking like, a composite model is the direct query to other Power BI semantic models. So a direct query to analysis services wasn't added until way later. So that's where I'm going. So it was originally released in 2018. It wasn't updated again in 2020 when really what we're talking about here, which is, hey, if I have dimensions or measures or calculations, I can put them in a single model and then reuse that model again for other places. Okay. So that's the composite model side. I want to unpack this other side of this question, which is reusable data sets. I think we should define those. And since you did the composite model, Tommy, I'm going to kind of maybe speak a little bit to reusable data set. And then I want your opinion on, Tommy, what you think it means to you as well. So in a reusable data set, we want to have a single data set serving as many thin reports as we possibly can. However, having one monolithic data model, we find becomes cumbersome, difficult to update and manage. And so I want to revise what I mean by like a reusable data set. Yes, you want to have like a sales domain, right? There's sales information that the sales team needs. You're going to build in tables. You're going to have them interact with reports. There's like a domain of information. You will probably have other domains of information like operational data. Well, what we're talking about here is I'm not saying you shouldn't put the operational data in with the sales data domain unless you really need it on the report where it joins both topics. Okay. So when I talk about reusable semantic models, I'm not saying, hey, your company should only have one or two models. That's it. You're done. Move on.
Right.
The larger your organization becomes and the larger the models become in size, you're going to run into limits of you can't keep all the data in memory all the time. So you're going to need to build domain-specific models. And again, this is also another thing around like governance and administration. As your team grows, if it's one person, much easier because you have one person who understands the model, they built the measures, they can make it happen, right? But Tommy, as you and I know, whenever we start working together on a project, Tommy's doing a little bit of something somewhere, I'm building something in a different spot. We got to like coordinate and talk and connect. So when we try to build things together, there's this idea of we need to be able to break apart the workload and let Tommy work on the operational reporting and Mike should be able to work on the sales reporting. And so this is where the domains, I think, make a lot of sense here. Domain-specific reporting. So that's what I mean by reusable data sets, right? This is something that you're going to give people a report. The expectation is they're going to take that report, maybe copy it, make new changes to it, adjust it, or you're going to give them a data set and say, here's a semantic model. Go build what you want. Go build your flat table in Excel, go build paginated reports, go export things you want. So you're building self-service into those reusable data sets. That means you're adding descriptions. You have lots of clean, clear measures. You're organizing the information in an easy to understand way. You're communicating these are dimensional things I'm going to cut the data by, and these are factual things I'm going to count, aggregate, or sum, or do some sort of math to. And there's all kinds of patterns and how you do this. But if you've been around the data space long enough, you kind of start recognizing some of those patterns. Let me just pause right there, Tommy. Is there anything you would want to add to what I'm giving around like a data set, a reusable data set definition?
So with the reusable data sets, I mean, just from the clarity point of view, this is, I think for a lot of people too, it's the idea has always been the gold model thin reports idea. But obviously we know there had those limitations, and man, as a consultant, you see those limitations. Like, hey, can you make a quick fix here? And you look and it's 175 tables in one model.
Like, oh boy.
Probably, that's so.
And you're like, if I adjust anything, I don't know what that's going to impact.
I'm very worried.
There's a bi-directional relationship here that no wonder something's slow. And you're like, if I fix that, that's going to break everything.
Oh, my friend. And they want to be just like, can you just fix that DAX real quick? I'm like, the dependencies. So
I find when you have a lot of tables like that, it's a lot of people coming from a transactional world trying to build a transactional database inside Power BI with semantic models. And transactional databases just have a lot more tables. It's just going to be a lot more.
Yeah.
It is. That's how they build it. That's easier for the app to read and use, but it's not easy for us to do reporting on it. We need aggregations of this stuff. Like, this is not good.
Oh, the sub product table, all related. Yeah. So anyways, but, and again, it's just the business expands, the questions get usually, especially in the initial adoption, the questions and what's possible just expands. And you can't just put everything in a nice, so to speak, box of here's, our digital marketing semantic model, and that's everything they're ever going to need. So being able to connect the dots across the business is huge. So there's a lot of use cases here, but I'm going to pose something to you, Mike, regardless of each, because they both have their limitations, and I don't want to just start on limitations or the gotchas. But I think it's just really important to know if you use, especially composite models, what you're getting yourself into. And again, I hate starting with a, buyer beware, so to speak. However,
yes and no, Tommy. I mean, I agree with you to some degree, but I think the one big negative that I see for composite models, and the reason why I don't use them very much, or we're heavily cautioned against them, is when we were sold the initial idea of direct query over analysis services, which is part of the composite model. So a model of models, right? I have one main analysis services model, and I'm going to go grab other models across the board. Is that when the models talk to each other, when model A talks to model B and says, "Hey, give me some data," any filter context that you're providing is not able to be handled inside the compute engine, because you're basically running two separate computers and you're having to communicate between them. Is in my mental model. It's how it may not actually be doing that, but like in my mental model, that's how I'm thinking about it, right? There's two separate computers, and then over the wire or through the network or through the system, right? If you select 5 product numbers in model A, and you need those 5 product numbers to get filtered to do a filter effect on another table in a different model. And this is where Microsoft introduces this idea of islands, right? A single model is a single island. Second model that you have that you're doing the composite model with is a different island. So as long as you stay in the context of the island, your queries run really fast because it's all inside one machine, inside one memory storage compute item. As soon as you jump between islands, it's like doing a shipping container, right? Everything's fast when you're in the country, right? You're shipping things around, it's all working fast. And as soon as I want to send product from one country to another, from Europe to America, I have to put it on a boat. I have to take all the items for each item, put a list of all the items, put it on a boat, and then transfer it over to the other island. And so because of that, there's this slowdown effect. And so if you imagine if you had, for 5 or 6 items, it's not a big deal. But imagine, Tommy, you selected everything except this item. Well, now you got this huge list of like really long items. Like I've got a massive list of text string that is getting sent to the other model. And we know the models don't really love filtering on text strings. It's not really super efficient. So we see in situations where the islands are trying to pass lots of data between them, we get very big slowdowns. And so the composite model, I think for me, the story falls apart, right? If you have a semantic model and you want to add an Excel document, if you have a semantic model and you're going to do joins on like something that's very high granularity, meaning there's I guess we would say low granularity, I guess would be the word I should probably be using, of very few items, right? Join on region, join on country, join on something that's a bit more aggregated in form, then you're probably fine. Composite models will probably work just no problem. You might find good, reasonable use cases for this. Kevin Arnold did a really good article and has been talking about composite models for a number of years and has some really good points around that. So I said a lot of things, Tommy. That's my big downside to composite models. What do you think? Is that your same impression too? Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, and I think where this really comes into play is I'll always go back to managed self-service, right? Sure. And this becomes such a huge part, usually when the question really arises on how are we going to tackle this as an organization, because it also becomes not just a feature at this point, it's a governance question. So even if, let's say, there were no bugs or limitations, and they actually have worked on the data flowing or filter context flowing through different tables. Initially, that did not work. But however, if we roll out managed self-service, which a lot of organizations are, well, we'll see what happens with Fabric now, but it really has been, to me, the shift for a lot of organizations where we cannot survive on just a single BI developers alone, but we want to keep our data secure. So you and I have talked in spades about MSS or managed self-service. This is usually when this comes up. It's like, okay, central team, you built these great marketing semantic models that I can connect to in the semantic model workspace, but I need to actually see that, the email sends too. So that's a great use case where composite models come into play. I don't want to say outside of managed self-service, but really when you allow teams and users who've gone through, we'll say, the proper training or the proper channels to add in that additional data to a semantic model. And that's also controlled in something like a managed self-service. So that model cannot be published in somewhere where it can go to the entire org. It's kind of already known. This is a composite model. This is where it makes a ton of sense. This is where it actually really, I've seen it take off. Because it's also who owns it, right? Because you can't say as the developer, well, I built the sales model and now every report that's composite is wrong. Okay, how do we make sure that blame in a sense goes to the right person or the right team?
Yeah, responsibility.
So, yeah,
that's where I really want to use like promoted and certified data sets. Makes a lot more sense here, because then you can restrict who's actually able to certify things.
So I think it expands more than just certified and the promoted, though, because I think even in the managed self-service, you're going to have a lot of semantic models. Not all of them are going to be certified. You just may have.
Very few of them will be certified. I would
right.
I would
exactly.
I mean, if you're giving people models that are certified and saying build more things on top of these, right? I would assume almost none of those things that are being built off of those certified items are going to be certified. In the fact that you're now handing off responsibility to a different team. The central BI team should be the one building those certified items. And then if there's something that an item, let's say, Tommy, you come up with this amazing new algorithm and this amazing new report, it's doing really impactful things. If that's something that's adding legit value with your composite model or whatever you built in the composite model, me as central IT would say, let's go look at the usage of Tommy's report. Wow, this is really performing really well. We've got a lot of hits. It seems like it's gaining some traction. What can we do to incorporate his changes into our main model and kind of deprecate what you built, but then make it more efficient and faster in like the central space.
Yeah.
So, and then you're going back from like, you're basically killing off the uncertified things and bringing them back into a certified space again.
Yeah. And I think that the rollout there is so necessary. As much as you want to just like, my initial nerd in me wants to have all my semantic models have the ability to be connected to other sources, because that's what I like to do. I look at something like, oh, I wish I had this. But the rollout's so important here for it to usually work out well, because again, those gotchas. But let me ask you before I say the same thing over, would you agree or disagree with the statement then that the composite model route only makes sense in a managed self-service environment?
That's a great question. What do you think about that? I think I'd have to answer it with are you only playing around in PowerBI.com or do you have access to Fabric? But let me clarify the question. Interesting. But what do you think?
So let's say let's go with this standard, because I know the Fabric one's going to change. Let's say just Power BI.
Okay, in just Power BI, I think there is a use case for some lightweight composite models to be used in self-service. I do want to caution, like there's definitely a big warning label that comes with it. Your performance will vary. You may get PD fast things. If your model size is small, like under a gig, composite models probably won't even bat an eye, right? If your data set's small enough, you probably won't even notice. We find a lot of times when companies are starting out building Power BI models, the speed of the analysis services engine is so fast that you can get away with a lot of bad designs and it still works just fine. Again, it's very forgiving in that way, right? Usually I get called when they're like, oh, my model is not fitting on this server, or, oh, my model is too big, or, oh, this, that, and the other thing. So like, how do I trim this down? Okay, well, you loaded every single column from the SQL database. You're not actually using every single column in the actual report. You probably need to ditch these other text fields or columns because you don't need them. Your model's too large, or you've built this one monolithic model that is all reports, all pages in one big semantic model. You know what? You now have broken the threshold of 1 gigabyte. You now need to break that thing into domains, like we said earlier, which is now build domain specific models. And then it gives you a lot more flexibility there as well. So I will say in the Power BI world, I think there is a use case. Again, I would highly recommend go read or go listen to Kevin Arnold's, go look up Kevin Arnold composite models, best practices. He's got like 5 use cases where he thinks it makes sense. And I would agree with them. They make a lot of sense to me as well. So that would be one area. when we move over from just pure Power BI to now Microsoft Fabric, I like this new world that we're living in. And Tyndall, I think, also is slightly shifting how I view model development as well. Okay. In Tyndall, you have the ability to see the entire definition of the model as flat files. Also, inside Tyndall, you can reference other files inside Tyndall. So each table becomes a file. Right. In that table, you can have all the measures of the table. So one of the arguments for using composite models was, I have this table. These are the factual measures that live in this fact table. I need to lift that somewhere else. I have to rebuild all those measures again, right? I want to reuse the business logic. So there's this concept of like the golden data set now doesn't actually have to be a deployed model. The golden data set could be a semantic model that has all the definition, and you save it as PBIP formatted, and you take the Tyndall file for fact sales, and you can then lift that to other models. Or in other words, Tommy, too, you can take an existing large semantic model, which is the semantic definition of the entire company, and then you can just delete tables and get a smaller domain. So now you can build automation around this. Now you can build deleting files and making things more. You basically think about the semantic model. How great would it be to be able to take this one golden definition of a semantic model, the schemas, all the relationships, all the definitions, the tables, and just delete off what you didn't need, and then make one main model makes 4 or 5 smaller subdomain models. Yeah, that's possible now, and I think that wasn't really possible before. So the other thing I would kind of point out here when we go into the world of Fabric is we have this idea of islands. Remember we were talking about that earlier.
Oh yeah.
When you go between lake houses, so let's say I have lake house for sales and I have a different lake house for operations. When I pull data from the lake, it's the same island. We have no problem now. So this is another thing that I think changes for me in the game of Fabric is data sets now have less islands because I can go to the lake house and I can define multiple tables in multiple different lake houses, but everything still acts as if it is the same island inside the Power BI semantic model. And again, now we're getting all the efficiency, the improvements of data sets, but we can still talk to those tables collectively. So my opinion here is if I had to choose, Michael, you need to use composite models, or you can use lakehouse and tables, or warehouse and tables, whatever lakehouse, warehouse. I think they're very synonymous depending on what your skill set is. I'm going to choose lakehouse and warehouse with tables because I get the advantage of everything's on the same island. I get the advantage of everything can be loaded directly to the semantic model. I can now build relationships, tables, and measures and reuse them using Tyndall, which helps me build models faster. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, Tommy.
And I think this is where everything changes for me too, is the day that Microsoft announced that you can build a direct lake semantic model with multiple tables from multiple lake houses. That's when everything changed.
Game changer.
That was a changing moment. I think that absolutely goes on the t-shirt as a game changer. Honestly, because getting that implemented to me would be like in an ideal world, the first approach, because that completely changes the last 10 years of how we thought about developing models.
Yes.
Now, and I say that the reason I caveat that with the ideal is because here's the thing. I'll just throw it out there too. Mm-hmm. The beautiful thing about a Power BI semantic model is I can have this on desktop, and again, it's very, so to speak, easy for someone to kind of recreate or just use that Power BI file. Once we start dealing with the tables from different lake houses and then trying to distribute that, that's when things I think get a little more complicated. However, if I'm a central BI team, Mike, I am never you doing Power Query again. Almost, gosh, I hate saying that. But the thing is, because I use data flows 95% of the time. The 5% though was awesome for fact tables, but 95% of the time was for master tables, things that we're going to use and re-reference in the semantic models.
Yep.
Now, that's usually not only the only limitation with that was the data flow had to refresh, and then I had to refresh my model, get anything updated. So dimension tables made sense. But with this, all my fact tables can live in different, like again, in the environment and the location that I want. And we can have those single lake houses that are maybe a managed self-service approach, but regardless, we have our single, here's our master tables for dates and customers, etc. And the beautiful thing about that too is any expansions or extensions of those tables, easy to do. So users are almost going to like the buffet version of picking a model. We have obviously organization choosing becomes important here.
Yes.
But this to me, once this starts really getting rolled out, is without being a little understated, the most consequential to how we develop Power BI models and Power BI reports that has happened since Power BI came out in 2015.
Interesting. Tommy,
You're pondering.
I'm pondering right now. Your comment there made me, so while you were describing things, I'm going to just go on an idea. Imagine a world, right? Imagine if. Okay, so imagine a tool that would go through all of your semantic models. It would find all of your lakehouse tables, and then it would build relationships between, okay, we know that these tables are referenced in these different Power Query experiences, right? These different semantic models downstream, right? So now you have, so imagine first we start at the lakehouse level. We now have all the lineage of the lakehouse tables. Then imagine a tool that would go through all of your semantic models and define every single table from every single model. And it would show you the lineage from this lakehouse. This is the name of the table. That table then is referenced in this Power Query here. These are the steps. This table was transformed with these, 3 steps of transforms. And then that is used in, these are the measures that attach to that. There's a view of this. Like, so I was talking about earlier, like the golden semantic model, like for your whole organization. You could build that. That's something that's buildable today. And you don't have to start with the golden semantic model. You could start with your lakehouse tables and then all the currently deployed semantic models and say, where does all of my data in my organization come from? What server does it come from? What's the path of it? What's the most, to me, this is like a graph database. This is a thing of a bunch of relationships that we're able to produce together. So imagine having, like, let's say, Tommy, you've got 30 or 40 semantic models across your organization that you're looking at, right? Every single one of them have references back to some sort of data source. So company-wide, you should be able to say, here's all my data sources across my entire organization. Here's all the tables that we're producing from those. Here's of those tables, here's all the semantic models they live, and here's which semantic models did transforms on top of those tables. Oh, by the way, here's the complete list of all your measures across all of those tables, and here's the relationships between all those tables. If you just took that information just of itself, all of it links back together. All of it's related. And you could have a centralized graph database of scan my tenant, see all the items we have, and then you could say, look, here's our production SQL server. You could literally click on that one and you could say all the way downstream, here's all the tables, here's where things are being transformed. Because I went through a project recently where we did this. We had, let's call it like 7 or 8, maybe more than that, 15 or so reports. Every report was being redesigned differently. Every report had a single semantic model, and they were writing custom SQL for every single report to get the results out. Shockingly, nothing tied out together at the end. Nothing matched at the end of the day. And so since nothing was matching at the end of the day, it's because every single semantic model had different business logic. How cool would it be to be an admin and say, where is business logic being applied to this table that is a source? And what changes are being made in other places? It would be incredible. I mean, the data, the part of this is it's blowing my mind right now is it exists. It's in there. It's in the it's in the computer.
It's there. It's all we have to do is reach it, man.
It's in the computer. So
it's just asking for us to get it, man.
Yeah, I just got to write some poetry to get it out. So anyways, your comment there, Tommy, like, I think in general here, right, what we're talking about is like the world has opened up to us. Like composite models, I think was maybe like past number one of this. Lake houses, fabric, the extensibility of the PBIP format. I think that's really opened a new door for us. And that's why I think Tommy and I would be recommending, if we had to pick one or the other, we would choose datasets and data modeling over top of the composite models. And it's more around the idea of the world of fabric has opened up the capabilities for us to do more, discover more, and see more with inside that multiple data model arena. And that's kind of maybe that's a better way of saying this one. Yeah, you can use composite models. Yes, it works in a pure Power BI world, but if you're even thinking about or starting to use fabric in any form, you really should be considering redesigning your models or looking at what your models are doing and start saying, okay, let's look at the domains of all the models and finding out the full lineage of everything. There's your $1 million idea there, Tommy. Just
all right, we'll start working on it this weekend. How about
that? Vibe code it.
Vibe code it. There's a few agents that I'm going to have to write.
Exactly.
No, but we're going to have to, I think there's going to be a lot more episodes on this too, because it's interesting though. We're talking about this. We love this. Mm-hmm. And maybe people just don't blog about their internal environments anymore. I don't know, but I have not seen a lot of buzz about this approach, which is interesting, right? So like the blog article came out and we're talking about what is possible here with being like, just, like what you just talked about, all the doors that have opened up. I had no follow-up from Microsoft. People I talk to don't see, like, to me, this is one of those, hey, everyone's been riding horses. By the way, there's this really cool thing. It's called a car. And we'll go, wow, that's really awesome. Giddy up. And they go back on their horse. There's almost a little of that to me. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, where if this does what it says it can do, then to me, this would be where like the time's focus from Microsoft's point of view to other MVPs to organizations saying, no, this is this direction we're moving.
I think I would point out I think what I feel like is the main hesitation right now is really around what Microsoft is providing for licensing at this point. I think the main hindrance to this just being like the new standard is because all those pro users don't get access to Fabric. And I would argue to believe, you look at your organization, who has access to Fabric? It's probably a much smaller surface area of people than what we have for just using Power BI. Like you look at the Power BI ecosystem, and again, this is numbers as of like March of this year. I think Microsoft quoted something like 30 million monthly active users in Power BI. So that's a huge number. Now, Microsoft has also touted that the growth of companies using Microsoft Fabric has been increasing. So like that's way higher now. That I don't know the actual number of that one. I don't remember any quotes from Microsoft around how many organizations are now using Fabric, but it's growing, and it's growing. It's the fastest growing data platform they've ever had, which makes sense because it's easy to use. It's right next to everything else. They're constantly prompting you to like get a trial, start it, get going. Right. So a lot of this stuff is just making sense. And I think to your point, Tommy, I think there's a hesitation. I think people are a little bit leery of, if I go into Fabric, there's so many options. I think people are just nervous about getting the decision wrong and having to rebuild a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And so organizations are like, we think Fabric might be the right solution, but we're kind of hesitating right now. So I think there's just a hesitation from organizations to not step into yet another brand new tool to see if it's going to actually add value. So what are we 3 years out on Fabric, Tommy? 2 years out?
I mean, GA, I think it was just a year and a half ago.
So we're only let's call it 2 years in. We're only roughly 2 years in on Fabric, and we're just at the beginning of the adoption curve of this thing. So if this just keeps growing, I think in year 3, year 4, year 5, you're going to start seeing a lot more comfortable organizations saying, this is solving problems. We're finding real value from Fabric, and we're going to start adopting it faster. I think there's this idea of like, I know what the cost is. I have pro users. I have licenses. It works. The fact that I have to pay a different licensing pattern to get into the Fabric space, I think has some organizations hesitating. The bigger ones, the ones that already have P SKUs and like big organizations, they're already in. Like they've already bought it because they already, by default, your P SKUs are already Fabric SKUs anyways. So I already see that being like a no-brainer for them. If you're large and you have a P SKU, you've already made the commitment, like, yeah, Power BI is going to be worth it for us. And now you can add all the Fabric stuff as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a lot of things right now that's kind of on hold. Like, imagine this happened to us with Power BI. The only thing that got released in the last 3 years was the have your tables easily connected to whatever. This is the one feature. I imagine this would be the talk every week, every month in terms of what people are doing. If we had I know that's odd to say, but like there's no notebooks, no nothing else. This to me seems like the biggest game changer, but I think I would agree with you, Mike, where yes, absolutely. This is a huge deal, but how many organizations actually have completely moved over to it right now? So
I don't think it's a complete move at all, by any means. Because I think there's also a little bit of political diagnosis going on here, right? So the reason there's some political challenges here. Some organizations have an dedicated data engineering team. They're maintaining warehouses and databases and things like that, right? So you need to transition that team away from, like, are you going to stay in SQL Server on-prem? Are you going to stay in some other Azure related? Like, a lot of companies have already put together a lot of technical debt around making sure these other data products that they've built work. To throw all that away and start greenfield again with Fabric, I think is a mistake, honestly. So it needs to be these decision points where organizations are saying, I need to move away from on-prem. I need to move to cloud. What is our next option? And I think those are the kind of companies that are like, okay, let's adopt Fabric because I don't have to stand stuff up. I get one purchasing place, a capacity, and then from there I can build anything I want. I think also, Tommy, organizations that are currently on legacy products, maybe already in Azure, and they're trying to modernize themselves. Hey, we don't want to be on SQL servers anymore. We want a different way of doing data. At the end of the day, the reports are always going to be in Power BI. It feels to me like that's going to be a staple, right? That's going to be the one consistent thing. And what I'm finding now is because Power BI is the anchor to a lot of this story, organizations are exploring, okay, well, what could we do to make it easier? Oh, interesting. Direct Lake means I don't have to import data anymore. Well, that would save me an hour every day on every single semantic model. That's nice. I'd rather not to have to import everything all the time. Oh, I need more real-time data. What kind of things does Fabric offer? And I'm saying real-time in the fact that not I have a stream of high velocity data. I have a slow stream. One file appears in my lakehouse every day. Mm-hmm. I want it to automatically load when the file arrives, right? It's that kind of stuff. I want event-driven data loading pipelines. That's a need. That's a legitimate need, and that is real-time data, but it's just doing it when something shows up. It real-time does a data load pipeline. So it's that kind of stuff that I think organizations want to start using, and now Fabric is making that easier. You could have done all this with other tools. You could use Databricks and Snowflake, and I think Microsoft's really coming in strong now. It's starting to get its feet. It's making a lot of improvements, and they're being really competitive against Databricks and Snowflake. And you're seeing Databricks and Snowflake as Dataflix. That's like Snowflake and Databricks all mixed to one. Databricks and Snowflake is now trying to build semantic models. They're building in memory tabular models so they can cache the data and compete with Power BI at the report layer. It's coming. Like the fact that they're building what Microsoft has already had for 10 years, 30 years, whatever it is in Excel. This tells me that Microsoft's on the right pace here. They had the right solution.
Dude, I cannot wait to see. Here's the nice thing, Mike. Regardless, it feels like we're gonna have a job forever in this space.
I've said this before with you, but like in the past, like data's not getting. They're not throwing away data. Like, where in the world are we having like less data being created? If anything, all the AI and automation, it's just creating more data. Like we're exponentially growing the amount of data, Tommy. I think as long as we can stay in tune with it and work with it and adapt, right? You're right. I think you're right. I think we're in a place where there will be many, many years of data engineering, shaping, developing, and building, as long as we stay in the forefront of like what Microsoft and the big companies are doing to help organizations manipulate and shape and store data.
Dude, I love it. So hopefully we answered the question too, but Mike, it's funny because obviously for you and I, we're kind of all onto the bandwagon of Fabric. And
Agreed.
I think the person asking the question here is probably like, okay, but I think for a lot of people who are listening, it's going to happen for you whether you wanted to or not. This our move to Fabric. So I cannot wait to see what the future holds.
Every single week, Microsoft is building new features inside Fabric that is just making the data story more compelling. It's getting to the point where the value proposition or the opportunity of value inside Fabric is becoming so great. Why wouldn't you just try it? See if it can make you go a little bit quicker. Can you take a project that used to take a month down to a couple weeks, a week? Like, that's amazing. And also, I'm going to be excited to hear the announcements coming out from FabCon Vienna. I believe there are some big announcements, and maybe that will also help us push things forward. So next week, when we actually are back on live air again, Tommy, we should definitely do a recap of the Fabric conference and just kind of pick out our key announcements and things that we think are really exciting and new. So that being said, I think we're fully at time here. I've had a great time talking about this one, Tommy. This was a great topic. Nice thoughts. Great question. Our community is amazing. Thank you, Mailbag, for sending us a great question. We really want to encourage that from the community. It helps us direct our conversation to things that you care about, and we love that. So make sure you engage with us and ask questions on our Mailbag. We have a form on the website. You can submit your questions there. Tip or trick, if you tell us you really like the podcast and how much you're learning from us, we'll probably pick your question more over than others. Not saying that's going to actually happen, but Tommy picks the questions from the Mailbag. So maybe you sent him some pasta. Tommy will pick your question.
It's got to be fresh.
It's got to be fresh. That being said, thank you so much. We've introduced something new on the podcast episodes. If you want to watch this podcast episode on YouTube with no ads, you're more than welcome to. We have a memberships area. Visualize this as one of our members. We'd love for you to be part of our community and chat with us and connect with us on that community as well. You can get this whole episode free of ads and early. We will post the episode as soon as it launches on the Visualize This space on our YouTube membership place. So feel free, please join us as a member and support the channel. And if you've learned something from this, please become a member. We're going to keep doing this. It helps us keep going and fund the expenses that we have that do video and all this kind of other stuff. So we really appreciate it. That being said, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. If you have a question, idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast, leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and all of powerbi.tips social media channels.
Let's make a quick correction there, Tommy. It's powerbi.tips/podcast, not powerbi.tips.
You can't type that.
You can't type that. It doesn't work. It's only powerbi.tips/podcast. We'll be there. The questions are there. Feel free to submit your questions inside there as well. We really appreciate community. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the things you've been doing. It's super fun to be around the community. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.